gives you a brief energy hit and then crash you harder than if you had nothing. And it's not that spiking your insulin is bad. I'm not one of those guys. But if you do spike your insulin, you're going to get hungrier later. Breakfast. Skip it or fix it. The truth about your first meal. So you might wake up confused every single morning. Should you eat breakfast or should you just skip it? The fitness industry ping-pongs. The experts claim different things, that it's the most important meal of the day, or if you eat it then you're going to get fat. And it doesn't seem like there's any in between. Meanwhile, you don't eat breakfast, you crash by 10 a.m. You eat the wrong breakfast, you crash by 9 a.m. And then whatever happens, you just binge later on anyway. And the problem is, people rush in the morning, grab random food, get these intermittent fasting apps, and then just get more confused. I've done intermittent fasting. I've had breakfast. I've had shit meals for breakfast. And I've been left absolutely ravaged by the end of the day. And I've also managed to control my hunger at night. And it all comes down to breakfast. Eating donuts and sugary cereal is like having dessert at 7 a.m. Having no breakfast is going to spike ghrelin in the evening. So today I'm going to expose the breakfast lies from both sides. Those intermittent fasting weirdos and those traditional breakfast pushers. You'll learn when to eat, what to avoid, and what actually fuels performance without the industry manipulation. The breakfast industry, the cereals, blah blah, make billions selling sugary food designed as nutrition. The fasting industry, restriction disguised as optimization. Both profit, both are experts. So this industry of these intermittent fasters has convinced so many people that skipping breakfast is somehow superior for adults, but simultaneously admitting that kids need breakfast for focus, energy, and performance. So they've created a profitable contradiction that ignores basic human physiology. So if you think about it logically, why would you send your kid to school without breakfast? I mean, you wouldn't, because studies show that children perform worse, less focus, less energy, worse grades, but somehow adults trying to build muscle, trying to recover from workouts, and trying to perform at their peak are supposed to just go completely on empty. And there's a 2019 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that found that people who ate breakfast had 12% better cognitive performance and 15% better mood scores throughout the day compared to those who skipped it. That fasting industry profits from selling you complicated eating windows and optimization. They'll sell you courses and ignore that starting your day without fuel just leads to worse choices later, and then blame your lack of discipline or whatever else excuse they've got, when the system is actually designed to set you up to fail. There's more studies that showed that breakfast skippers consumed 400 more calories at the next meal to compensate for those elevated ghrelin levels, i.e. the hunger hormone. So you don't eat for longer, and who'd have known you get even hungrier. That paper found ghrelin increases by 28% when you skip breakfast. And when you do skip breakfast, you're not optimized. You're literally in damage control mode. Another meta-analysis of 45 studies found that breakfast skippers had 22% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And that is completely regardless of BMI. So you're fat, you're thin, you're normal, you're athletic, whatever it is. Skipping breakfast is like starting a road trip on empty. You might make it to the first station, petrol station, but you'll be running on fumes and anxiety. But eating the wrong breakfast is even worse than skipping. The breakfast food industry spent decades convincing you that muffins, cakes, cookies are appropriate for morning fuel, disguising literally desserts as nutritious breakfast options, and create an entire aisle of sugar and artificial flavours as a good start to a healthy day. You've got like donuts, muffins, sugar-loaded cereal, cream-filled coffee. It spikes your blood sugar, gives you a brief energy hit, and then crash you harder than if you had nothing. And it's not that spiking your insulin is bad. I'm not one of those guys. But if you do spike your insulin, you're going to get hungrier later. That healthy blueberry muffin has more sugar than chocolate bars. And it's literally just positioned next to coffee like it's real food. A study tracked 30,000 adults and found that those eating the high sugar breakfast had 27% higher rates of metabolic syndrome. And another showed that refined carb breakfast caused blood glucose to drop below fasting levels within 2 hours, triggering intense hunger and cravings. So you'll literally be hungrier 2 hours after eating sugar than if you ate nothing. And the industry is profiting from sugar addiction and energy crashes. When you crash by 10 a.m, you don't blame the muffin, you just grab more coffee or more energy drinks or more sugar, i.e. more of their own products. Here's the kicker. The breakfast cereal industry has funded 88% of studies showing breakfast is the most important meal. And those studies recommended cereal. Independent research shows no difference between eating and skipping as long as total daily nutrition is adequate. They literally bought the science to sell you sugar. Eating sugar for breakfast is like revving your engine in neutral. Lots of noise and energy, but you're going absolutely nuts. So what should you actually eat instead? Both those fasting weirdos and breakfast pushers ignore the most important factor. Protein. Fasting crowd says timing doesn't matter, while the breakfast industry pushes carbs and fat bombs with zero protein, and meanwhile your body needs amino acids to actually function. Research shows muscle protein synthesis drops by 30% overnight. So without morning protein, you stay in a catabolic state, literally breaking down your own muscle for fuel. Most breakfast foods are carb and fat combinations designed for palatability, not performance. There was a study that found that using brain scans showed that eating 35 grams of protein at breakfast reduced cravings by 60% and decreased late night snacking by 50%. Meanwhile, you're eating bagels and wondering why you're starving by 10 a.m. So you have a high protein breakfast and you will literally eat 60%. You'll have 60% fewer cravings. Research in the International Journal of Obesity found that people eating eggs for breakfast lost 65% more weight than those eating bagels with identical calories. Why? The thermic effect of protein means your body burns 20 to 30% of those protein calories just by digesting it. That's against 5 to 10 for carbs. That's like getting a 25% discount on your breakfast calories. So protein burns 3 times more calories just to digest it. So if you start your day with 25 to 40 grams of protein, including like eggs, Greek yogurt, protein shake, and even a proper meal like chicken and rice. Studies show that protein triggers release of peptide YY and GLP-1 hormones that signal fullness for 3 to 4 hours. Sugar triggers insulin, which clears glucose so fast that you're hungry again in like 90 minutes. So protein is the foundation of a house. Like everything else you build on top is only as strong as what you start with. But there is something even more important than the food itself. If you want a complete system for optimizing your morning routine and breakfast choices without the industry manipulation, I've created a free 21-day course that will walk you through building sustainable habits that actually work. The link is in the description below and it's free if you want it. And moving on to the breakfast industry and fasting industry both miss the most important point. Your first meal isn't just about nutrition, it's about identity reinforcement. Every morning, you're either proving that you're intentional about your goals or that you're reactive to whatever's convenient. Cornell researchers found that people who made healthy breakfast choices made 70% better food decisions throughout the entire day. It's a phenomenon called behavioral clustering. Your brain literally uses the first meal as a reference point for every single decision it makes afterwards. So when you grab whatever's convenient, like a donut, sugary coffee, or just nothing, you're practicing becoming someone who settles for less than optimal. The food industry profits and you keep being reactive and impulsive. Every breakfast choice is a practice for who you want to be. If you choose intentionally and start your day every day, proving to yourself that you're capable of making decisions that serve your goals, the mental wins compound throughout the day. But this cascade effect is bigger than just breakfast. Both extreme breakfast camps ignore the psychological momentum factor. Starting your day with a decision that aligns with your goals creates a cascade effect that will influence every subsequent choice. A study in psychological science discovered that people who started the day with one healthy behaviour were 3 times more likely to maintain healthy behaviours all day. And it's called cognitive priming. Your breakfast literally programs your brain decision-making patterns for the next 12 hours. When you start with a poor choice or no choice at all, you're more likely to make compromising decisions throughout the day. It's not just about calories, it's about the psychological permission you give yourself. Breakfast momentum is like pushing a boulder. It does take effort to start, but once you're rolling, everything else just becomes easier. The thing that pisses me off the most about all of this is that both sides are lying. Traditional breakfast industry sells you sugar bombs disguised as nutrition, then blames you the lack of willpower when you crash and crave more and can't understand why you're absolutely starving at night time. Meanwhile, the intermittent fasting weirdos are trying to sell you something that's restriction disguised as optimization and blames you as like a lack of discipline or whatever, and then blames you for binging later on. Neither side want you to understand that breakfast is about fueling performance. They want you confused, buying products, blaming yourself when the extreme approaches fail. The solution is boring. Eat protein and plants when you're hungry. Skip meals when you're not, and stop letting industries decide what works for your unique goals and schedule. So here's exactly what works. Decide based on your goals, not trends. If you need energy and focus for morning activities, eat something. If you naturally feel better fasting until later, just don't start lecturing us all when we know that it's not true for everyone. Don't follow other people's rules for your unique situation. Number 2, if you eat breakfast, prioritize protein and plants over sugar and processed carbs, and aim for at least 25 grams of protein plus some fiber, and it will support sustained energy instead of blood sugar roller coasters. Remember, protein has 30% thermic effects of food. Literally burn calories while you just digest. And then step 3, use breakfast as identity practice. Every morning, choose foods that align with who you want to become. This creates a positive momentum that compounds throughout the day, and science shows that this one choice influences 70% of your daily decisions. So if you make a bad choice at breakfast, it might be the difference between that extra 500 calories burned because you decide to go to the gym, or an extra 500 calories eaten because you're starving at night. Stop asking what should I eat for breakfast and start asking what choices support my goals and reinforces my identity. This is just part of a system. If you want the complete system for building morning routines that actually support your goals, check out that video just there. No extreme rules, no expensive products, everything that you'll ever need to know about fat loss for free. See you in the next one.